friends, welcome back to Screen Coven. A lot of news and updates have happened with the show over the last few days, so let's talk about it. Hulu finally released a new teaser, and this time it's all about Agnes. And in it, we finally are introduced to a new character, and unfortunately, that character is Paula. We know Paula as Agnes's stepmom. She marries Agnes's father, Commander Kyle, following Agnes's mother, Tabitha's, death. And of course, she was written with a personality that would give Meredith Blake herself a run for her money.
Being young and beautiful is not a crime, you know.
And the clip that we get of her is with Agnes, and she's asking her, "Oh, is that the new skirt that I got for you? I was worried it'd make you look too gawky." An unbelievable comment to make. But thankfully, Agnes is June's daughter. And she responds, "Praise be for not making me look too gawky." We then hear Agnes narrate, "I was a precious flower. Why did I feel like a prize pig?" And we see that fake smile wipe off her face, as we're then shown a few clips of her starting to unravel in the world of Gilead. The next thing that happened this week was at South by Southwest, Hulu put up an activation for the Testaments that was a bit insane. This clip from Adweek shows that we can imagine are women from the Red Center of Gilead. And they've apparently stopped here to deliver pies to everyone. Okay, I thought this was pretty wonderful. Did anybody get one of these pies? Were they actually good? Please tell me, I need to know. I think it's so exciting to see all the different activations that networks are doing to promote their shows nowadays. I can't wait to see what other stunts they're going to pull off before the show starts. Next, the Oscars happened last Sunday, and if you didn't catch it, the star of our show, Chase Infinity, absolutely stunned on the red carpet. I am obsessed with this dress, and I can't help but just also wonder if there is a brief nod to Agnes here. Of course, I don't think that it being purple, the Testament's color, is any coincidence. Something that I really love about this dress that I think could be a nod to Agnes is the kind of split sides to her. We recently got a new poster of Agnes for the show, and we're seeing her look prim and proper on one side, and then there's also this mirror that we're seeing her in where she's screaming and obviously kind of losing control, indicating that there really is two sides of her as we enter into this series. So I do think the fact that part of her dress is more classic, subdued, and then we've got this part kind of unexpectedly wrapping around with these beautiful ruffles, but yet it's, it's adding some edge, some extra flair, some unexpectedness to it. That to me just has to be a complete indication as to what we can expect from Agnes going into the show. I really just can't get over how incredibly stunning this dress is, and Chase looks absolutely phenomenal. If you didn't watch the Oscars, this was a really awesome opportunity for Chase. She got to be one of only 5 actors on stage to present the first Academy Award ever for casting. And she was able to give that award to the person that casted her for her first big on-screen role, one battle after another. I'm sure that moment was incredibly special for Chase, and I'm so excited to be seeing her on our screens more in the Testament soon. Us Weekly also posted an article on March 6th, what to know about the Handmaid's Tale spinoff, The Testaments, returning cast members, release dates, and more. And from what I can tell, this was based around an interview with showrunner Bruce Miller back from 2022. So let's keep in mind this is several years ago, and it's unclear if Us Weekly checked in with anybody at the Testaments to confirm if these things were still accurate before they posted this or not. A part of me thinks if they didn't get any kind of confirmation from Hulu that it was okay to post it, then maybe they wouldn't have posted this. But I'm not really sure. Does Us Weekly work with Hulu? Hard to say for sure. But I just wanted to go into it kind of with, take this with a grain of salt. But just some things that I do want to remind you guys that apparently, Bruce had said a few years ago. And this actually was right before he stepped down as showrunner for The Handmaid's Tale in the final season so that he could focus more on the Testaments and bringing that show to life. We know at the time that Bruce said that he ended the show on their own creative terms, and that he's thought about the stuff that happens in season 6 for quite a while. So I have to imagine that a lot of the events that happened in season 6 really were to, of course, wrap up the Handmaid's Tale a bit with some of our characters, but mainly to set up the Testament show at a future point. As a side note, I am going back and rewatching all of season 6 and a little bit of season 5. And I'm going to be making videos where I'll be going more in depth on a review of what happened during those final episodes and how that might inform the Testaments. So if you're interested in seeing those videos, please make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you'll be notified when they come out. Another thing that Bruce did say in this interview was that the spinoff will be set 15 years later, just like the novel was, and that it will be narrated by Aunt Lydia. What he did not confirm at all was whether or not Agnes and Daisy would still be narrating characters. So the question is, if Us Weekly is reposting this and Hulu's not coming after them saying, oh no, this is wrong, take it down. I mean, of course, they could just be excited to have misleading information out there. It seems like maybe it's safe to say that, yes, the main premise of this show will be taking place 15 years after The Handmaid's Tale, and we will be seeing this story through the perspective and narration of Aunt Lydia. I think it's interesting that the Us Weekly article says, the spinoff will take place 15 years after the events of The Handmaid's Tale. And then it says, narrated by Aunt Lydia, viewers are thrust back into the dystopian future with new characters, Agnes from Gilead and Daisy from Canada, as they secretly gather and smuggle incriminating information about Gilead's regime out of the country. Agnes and Daisy pose as Pearl Girls to infiltrate Canada, while Aunt Lydia acts as a covert source within Gilead. If you haven't checked out The Testaments Theories video, I dive into who I think Daisy is, and I think it's a pretty compelling theory, so definitely check it out if you haven't. I also think this is kind of interesting because they're basically just telling us the plot line of the entire novel in a couple of sentences. I'm not sure why they would want to do that. And so I almost feel like this is an indication that this part of the story and the story that we are introduced to in the novel is going to be very, very short. And then potentially so much of this series is going to be something we really didn't expect. Maybe Agnes and Daisy actually work for Mayday and do a lot more than they end up doing in the novel. That would be pretty interesting. I would really love to come into the Testaments and be introduced to this new version of Agnes, maybe as someone who's already been working with Mayday from the inside, and we kind of can get a glimpse into that side of her. I also just wanted to point out that if the internet's correct, Chase Infinity would be 26 this year, and Lucy Halliday is about 21. I realize this is just Hollywood and how it goes sometimes, but both of those actors are actually closer in age to what the characters really would be in the novel. So it just makes me really wonder if the show really is going to be based 15 years after the events of The Handmaid's Tale, but we're clearly also going to get these Gilead events that are happening during a time period that absolutely does not line up 15 years after The Handmaid's Tale with our characters. Are we then going to get to follow Agnes and Daisy mainly as adults? At the red carpet premiere event for Imperfect Women that premieres on Apple TV this month, which also stars Elizabeth Moss, E! News caught up with her to ask about the Testaments. And Elizabeth Moss had nothing but the most incredible things to say about Chase Infinity, who stars as Agnes/Hannah on the show.
You know, you get this wonderful feeling when you find a talent like that, and it doesn't happen all the time. So we feel very fortunate that we sort of got to work with her and see her in the show, and I'm excited for everybody to see that world continue.
And when asked if Elizabeth Moss wanted to have a scene with Chase Infinity, she really tried to avoid the question by not giving us an answer. But if you've watched my other theories video, you know that I completely think June is going to play a major role in this new show. Thank you all so much for watching another episode of Screen Coven. As we get more Testaments, news, teasers, trailers, anything good, I'll make sure I share it with you so we can stay up to date and theorize together. See you next time.